Taos and Baltimore to be watched, and in my case, beer, wings, and pizza to be consumed this weekend as the Terps and others go to battle. But the Ravens are first and foremost on our mind, and certainly first and foremost on the mind of this guy who did all things for Comcast Sportsnet for 14 years. Bid adieu this week there at the network, but joining us here at WNST. And, of course, you can always find his journey and the purple flag being flown out on Twitter at Brent Harris TV. We welcome back one of our defending champions around here and a fellow bird watcher, and Baltimore County educated, I might also add, Brent Harris TV. And Brent, the play-by-play voice, now the Baltimore Brigade. Brent, I got my Brigade hat over here. Had I realized, I would have taken off my Ravens hat and put my Brigade hat on, man.
I tell you, man, it's exciting because I think, as you know, and being around, I think when we were kids, the Baltimore Blast, how that arena can be exciting. I think that game, the AFL football game, is really exciting. And I, like you, have been to the press conferences, and I brought home the hat with the B on it.
I got the shirt, too. The shirt's really soft. It fits nice. I like the shirt.
It fits nice, but I think my kids thought it was like my own brand because of the B.
It's B.
Hey, Dad, you got your own hat.
It looks like a Batman B for you. Like, if you blew it up and put it on your chest, it would be like a Batman thing, right? For
Brent. It would be perfect. Superhero dad.
Superhero Brent.
So it works well at the house. But, yeah, man, I am excited, Ness. I think it's going to be a lot of fun, and I hope they can really pack that arena. And I'll tell you one other thing, because being down there for the press conferences, and I walked out into the arena is built perfectly for an arena football team. As you know, it's a rectangle. A lot of these arenas are built for hockey, so it has a different feel, and they got to figure out what to do with the corners of the end zones. This arena fits it perfect, and then you have the stage on the other side, and they're going to do a whole VIP experience up on the stage where you could watch the game and have a VIP experience. So I think the arena, while it is older, and we all want to.
We all know the challenges there. Come on,
there are challenges.
But
I will say it is built. If you were going to build an arena football arena, right? I think that's what it would look like.
Dude, I'm one of those guys, and I don't, and I mean this from the bottom of my soul. There are people over at that arena that don't like me, and I don't get treated so well and whatnot. I love that place, and I love that it's 6 blocks away, and I love when the Stones play there, the Eagles play there. They're not anymore. When U2 plays there, Tom Petty's playing there this summer. I love when things are here. I really do. Yeah. And I love the fact that, Ted's brought this thing in. It's obviously very sort of startup and all of that in its very nature, and the holdovers from Tampa. And I've run into Ron Jaworski twice at the Super Bowl and talked to him twice about, the good side of the arena football. And Brent, I went down to some of those games years ago when the Mariners were down there. I mean, it was friends and family. There were 100 people, and I know they've done bikini football down there. They've done all sorts of things in there from a football perspective. Really, for me, it's the quality of the program and the quality of what they're trying to do, and it feels to me like they're not trying to be too much. And look, the whole stage thing, I've seen that in action at the Capitals games, at the Wizards game, that when they brought New Orleans up here a couple of years ago in those preseason games. Anything that puts people into Baltimore is a good thing for Baltimore, and I think that this is being at least exposed in the right way for what it is, and I think it's going to be a good time out. And I know I've got all the dates in my calendar. I'm looking forward to going over and being a part of it.
Oh, yeah, and I think it'll be a good rivalry with Washington and Philadelphia. You're right in the middle of that corridor. You're talking about only 5 teams, and so you also are going to have the best talent that Arena Football League can offer, because it has dwindled down from 14 to 12 to 8 to 5 teams. And the anticipation is, and I've read a couple articles in different cities that are already formulating some bids to try to get back into the AFL, but it'll build back up. And, they have a base now because the travel is a lot easier, because the talent pool has, obviously shrunk, so you're going to get better talent. The game should be really good. And I think, you talk about affordability and all that kind of stuff, and I think you and I see that very, in the same way. 2 guys born and raised here in Baltimore who enjoy going and having a $5 ticket to the Blast, or being able to go sit out in the outfield at Memorial Stadium for a couple bucks on a Thursday night. That'll have that feel, and this is a league, quite honestly, that really connects with fans. I mean, the ball goes in to the stand, you get to keep it. You get autographs after the game. And they're going to do all kinds of stuff as far as the broadcast, Nestor, where they bring the fans right into the game. They'll have a reporter. It's a 4-man team. They'll have a reporter that is just a fan reporter to get reaction from fans as the game unfolds. And you'll
That's
have
very
that
XFL,
access.
right?
Oh yeah, and I was going to say, and I brought it up in one of the production meetings early on, that it is a lot like the XFL, where if a guy scores a touchdown and does some sort of crazy dance after that, is interesting, our sideline reporter will talk to that player as they're coming off the field or on the bench.
I want to be that guy. I'm going to apply for that job, Brent.
That's a great job because it's fun, right? It's just all about fun and getting access. And look, and you know as well as I do, one of the hardest jobs is to talk to a coach in the middle of a game or at halftime. And I've had my.
I'm not familiar. Tell me about your experience. What was the worst thing that ever happened when you did that?
You know what?
What could possibly go wrong?
Nestor, a lot of people looked at it like it could be the worst thing. It was one of the best things. Dude,
it was like your Jim Rome moment with Jim Everett. I mean, I don't know what to say. I mean, I do for you and for John. I regret that it happened, and I don't know. I mean, it's like the Susie Colbert, Joe Namath happened. It's regrettable that the whole thing happened, but now that there's some time and some distance, no blood was spilled, and but I mean, it was a little awkward.
We get along very well now, and it was water under the bridge very quickly.
But it does live on the internet forever, and for that, none of us are happy about that.
No, but at the same time, when your coaches know this is going to be obviously part of the job, it's not easy, but you'll get reaction from the coach as the game goes on. The access that the AFL and Monumental Sports are going to bring makes, I think, these broadcasts so much more fun, and that's what we're talking about. Just a fun night out, access and being able to be right there front and center as a fan is something that we all want, and they're going to give you that.
I just said to you, hey, man, I want that gig. I want to be that guy. And then you're like, hey, you want to talk to the coach? I don't want to be that guy.
You don't want to be that guy. See,
I never want to be that guy. I mean, it wasn't your incident or any other incident. It's just, I don't know. I know I see Koken doing that during the game, the hockey games and whatnot, and I know in every sport, I don't get it. Having been around, I just don't think it's a good idea. Not because of I just don't think I get anything out of it. I don't think it's ever good. It only has potential for being disastrous. That's my opinion.
Well, I will say this, that very often, sometimes as a sideline reporter, you're put in front of the camera, and you will talk about something that very easily the color analyst or the play-by-play guy could have done, right?
Sure.
But there are times as a sideline reporter, and I've had tons of those moments, and you know it when it happens or when it's happening or what you're supposed to do with it, but you go into a huddle in a basketball game with 45 seconds left, and you get the message of what that coach is saying, or you bring to the audience what may happen next, right? Inside access that you wouldn't get otherwise. To me, that's what a sideline reporter is all about. Now, obviously, you have to do interviews, and there's some other things along the way in telling stories, telling a story again that maybe the color guy could have told on his own. But I do think there are moments that a sideline reporter can bring you things that you would not otherwise get. And I think that is what that job should be.
He is Brent Harris. He's done it. He is at Brent Harris TV now, out on Twitter. Also calling the games for the Baltimore Brigade. So now that I know that, you and I are going to bug each other off, and we'll have some fun with that, because I am going to embrace. I'm fully embracing the Brigade. Now, here's my problem, and I'm going to tell Ted this and Zach and everybody down there. There's going to be some real conflict issues here if the Capitals and the Wizards continue to play the way they've played, because not to mention the Orioles getting going in April too. There are going to be nights in April and May, we hope, we think, we believe, at least for a while, we hope it goes on longer than shorter, where there are going to be all sorts of remote control crazy nights if you are inclined to be an Oriole and or Nats and, a Caps and or Wizards fan. Then we got the Brigade. We're trying to do that, as well as Preakness and golf and this and that and all the other things. Lacrosse for the lacrosse community. I know you're one of those guys that likes lacrosse as well. I'm not a lacrosse guy, but that's out there as well. This is a busy, hopping time. And then the backdrop of all of it, I see on your Twitter page, it's the Ravens, right? It's the NFL. It's free agency. It's Brandon Williams. It's Jeremy Zuda. And it's never a dull moment. 11 o'clock on a Wednesday morning, Jeremy Zuda's out. And then you have to say, what's next, right? And as you know, Brent, there's always something going on there. There's a plan.
Well, obviously, there's always a plan. I think it's always interesting, too, because of the philosophy that Ozzie Newsome and the Ravens have always had, not to jump on free agency early because it's very expensive, to sit back, kind of wait. Now, I thought this year they were a little more aggressive than other years, but it was really being aggressive in-house, right? Signing Brandon Williams to the richest contract as a defensive lineman, something they felt like they had to do, and he has been so good. But it's all about stopping the run first. And look, we talk about Jeremy Zuta being let go, kind of falls into that, right? John Harbaugh, Ozzie, all of them have talked about building your team in the trenches from the inside out, which starts with your center and then goes to your defensive lineman, the interior to the exterior, rushing the quarterback to your left and right tackle. And that is where I think their focus should be this offseason because, look, you don't have a right tackle. You don't really have a lot of rush edge presence. I mean, Terrell Suggs now where he is, later in his career, you can't really depend on it. You have to start developing that next line, the next wave of great pass rushers. So, I think signing Brandon Williams, to me, going into the offseason, the day the season ended, I thought that was the top priority. So I was really glad. I was excited that they were able to get that deal done because when you talk about signing a guy to the richest contract at his position, that's not easy to do, right? It's as an organization, you have to go, wow, we're making a real commitment. Maybe we could get somebody not quite as good as Brandon Williams for $5 million less a season. Sure. But you commit to the guy that you brought up, that and that will have a major impact. And I was delighted to know that the Ravens felt it was that important, and they got that deal done.
Well, for me this offseason, I knew it was going to be choppy water, right? I mean, they didn't have the most amount of money. They didn't have the most amount of success. And Brent, I play it in my mind every day, and I talk about it all the time. And, far be it from Luke to be the negative ninny around here, but he's more negative than I am about their season. I tend to look at it as, well, they came one hit at the goal line in Pittsburgh away from stealing the division and playing a home game. That's how close they came to having, they would have had to win in Cincinnati, but I look at it as they weren't awful, but there is the sort of, is it half full or half empty when they're 8-8? And Luke, who's generally a pretty positive guy, doesn't necessarily see it that way. And every day I wake up and say, who's going to play wide receiver? Who's going to play cornerback? Who's going to rush the quarterback? Who's going to block on the right edge? Who's going to run the ball? Who's going to catch the ball? Is the quarterback going to regress? Or are we going to put him into an offense? Who's going to block for what running back? And then when you say, well, we know who's going to kick the ball, we know that, and love Mosley as a player, love Brandon Williams now giving him a lot of money. How's Marshall Yonda going to come back? Probably feel good about that. Probably feel good about Stanley coming forward. But I don't know what I feel great about other than, hey, they got a hell of a kicker. Really.
Yeah. I mean, I think it's interesting that when you look at a team that was 8-8. And I think over the last several years since the Super Bowl, really, you look at a team that's been pretty mediocre, right? If I'm not mistaken, Nestor, I believe since the Super Bowl, the Ravens are a few games under 500. Is that correct? I think it is, if my memory serves.
Well, it would have to be because of the bad year, yes. The good
one bad year. But this is a team that pretty much is, on again, off again, gotten into the playoffs, on again, off again, been about 500, a few under, a few over. I think we all would like to see, because we all see the potential is there, right? We all feel like with Ozzie running it and John is a great coach and Joe Flacco, who is a franchise quarterback. He may not be a Tom Brady or Aaron Rodgers, but he's certainly a franchise quarterback. We saw what he could do in a playoff situation, and we've seen his record in postseason play over the years. It's very good. You see a lot of the parts. I'd love to see a team that sits more at the 10, 11, 12 win season every year than we see what we have now. And there are a few games off of that. You can look at a season. We do this every year. We say one hit here, one play there, changes everything in the playoffs. Well, you know what? It would be nice if you got to that second to last game or last game.
Well, they were a 10-6 team that won the Super Bowl. That's what they were. It doesn't feel like that, but that's what they were. And then they were 8-8. 10-6, 5-11, 8-8. So they are one game under 500 for that period of time.
But isn't it a different feel than what maybe? And again, I know we're comparing to the best teams, but it doesn't have a different feel for maybe New England or some of the teams that consistently are there. Seattle over the last 5 years.
Well, this team
Pittsburgh
hasn't
at times,
drafted well, right? I mean,
no, it hasn't.
that's really the question. And look, I like the Jefferson signing, and I like the rationale. This is my purple polish and spin on it is if Matt Elam had turned out to be a player, and clearly over the last couple of years he wasn't, and the team suffered for it, and the team has suffered for every Jimmy Smith injury, and every draft pick that hasn't made it, the Terrence Brookses and the guys that have been out there. But then they took money they would have given to Matt Elam had he been a pretty good player, and they've now given that to a guy that they believe is a pretty good player that's of the same draft class. He wasn't drafted. He came in. He was an is, not a might be. We see that all the time, and we've seen that with a bunch of Ravens players and the Paul Krugers and the Ellerbys and the Art Joneses and the Pernell McPhees and even Kelechi Osemele, who are all NFL players. They just weren't guys that the Ravens could figure out how to get a second contract on. Now it really does put extra pressure, I think, on this draft, Brent. I mean, this will be the most important draft in recent times because this is going to define what they're going to look like the next 3 years, whether they're going to be that threat to be an 11, 12-win team, or every year they're going to be drafting somewhere between 12 and 18 because they're going to be 7-9, 8-8, 9-7, whatever that number is. And I don't know how much longer Ozzie and John are going to be able to survive mediocrity.
Yeah, and it has been very mediocre, and great point with Matt Elam. But if Matt Elam turns out to be a pretty good ball player, you're going to have to renegotiate a deal in that second term. And as we've seen, if you're really a ball player, if you're really good at your position, like a Juszczyk, who's now gone, who got a big payday with the 49ers, or
which I think shocked them. Would you agree with that? I mean, I think they thought
them, but again, where the market is, and if a guy is the best at his position, I think it's hard to even argue that Kyle Juszczyk has been the best as a fullback because he's kind of that H-back. He's able to do a lot of things, and there's a value for that, but certainly the Ravens weren't going to pay it. Same with the Kelechi Osemele. They weren't going to pay what he was worth or what Oakland was going to pay him. It becomes tough because you develop some guys, and they go because they become so good, and you're not able to afford them, or you don't think the value is there. You got to trust Ozzie on it. But at the same time, they've certainly let some really good players have to go over the years as well, which is never easy. So, it is a combination of building the talent out of the draft. Some of that talent that they got in the draft, they weren't able to hold on to either. So it is a balance of a lot of different things, and sometimes it doesn't always go exactly how you planned it. Imagine if Kelechi Osemele was a really good guard, but not a great guard, and his second contract comes up. He signs for another 3-4 years, and now all of a sudden the next year he becomes a Pro Bowl great guard, right? And you got him for another couple of years. These guys all have left because they blossomed in the first couple of seasons, and you could see the potential. And that's really tough. You can't pay Kelechi to be the top-rated guard as far as salary in the NFL, and also pay Yanda. You can't. You're going to have to pay Ronnie Stanley. You can't pay Kyle Juszczyk as the top fullback. My point is you can't go around and pay every one of the guys at their position the most at their position because you'll go bankrupt. You'll go over the cap.
Well, that is the beauty of the league, right? Is that even for the Browns, even for the 49ers and all the money they had, and I mean, the strangest trade I've ever heard of, Brent, is, take our quarterback and we'll give you a second-round draft pick for doing it. Right. That kind of deal's never been heard of in sports, and I mean, literally goes back to the days of he got dealt for a bag of baseballs. Remember those? That kind of talk.
It's been done in sports, but it's been done in basketball mostly, where you have those expiring contracts, and a team says, you know what, I'll take that contract because to me the value is how much money you have down the line to spend, right? And remember, in the NFL, you still have a minimum. I mean, you have to spend a certain amount of money. They may be looking at it going, we're not going to spend it all this year anyhow, so let's go ahead and get something for our money that we're going to get taxed on if we don't spend enough. It ends up being a pretty good move, especially if they could move Osweiler, but it becomes a pretty good move, something that we see in basketball all the time.
Well, I read Moneyball, and, obviously Dee Podesta, who got his start, by the way, with the Baltimore Bandits of the AHL many years ago here in Baltimore. He's now running the football thought processes, and, they look at everything there as a bullet in the gun for the arsenal of getting the next deal done. And look, that's the way Belichick's looked at this forever, and no one's had a better week than the Patriots, right? I mean, they have so far far not only won the Super Bowl, they've won free agent. They got a weapon for Brady. They got a cornerback who's a real guy. They're making deals that seemingly they haven't made historically, and they also have draft picks, and they might deal this Garoppolo thing and turn that into another one or two, right?
Oh, it's crazy too when you get a Tom Brady, years and years ago, late in the draft, and then you obviously have to look for a backup at some point, right? Maybe finally when Tom goes away, but then you realize you have such a great asset of a guy who's not even playing. The teams are willing to spend a lot of money to have, or at least give you a lot of draft picks. So what a great position, right? I mean, it's just sometimes the rich get richer, and you know this, Nestor. Like teams that are very good, who have a chance to go to the Super Bowl every year, can talk players into taking a little less money to be a part of something that other teams can't give them, and that's something the Patriots have had now for a pretty long time.
Yeah, Brandon Marshall did the same thing with the Giants, right? Last week. So there is a little bit of that going on, especially for guys that have already made a lot of money and are looking for other opportunities like winning or media opportunities. I mean, look at Steve Smith, what he turned, the couple of years in Baltimore here into a lot of money, chance to win every year, and now, front seat at NFL Network. Brian Billick said they're going to be working together next year. So Billick and Steve Smith together, that's quite the combo, right, Brent?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I mean, it gives us all reason to watch, right? You guys, pretty outspoken, and usually have a lot of great stuff to say, too, right? You got to respect their opinions. But also, what about Steve Smith? I mean, he's a guy now fully embracing media, breaking stories, being that guy that, says sources say when, let's be honest, as media guys, players and coaches and organizations hate that. Where's it come from? Where's the leak? I mean, I've talked to Steve plenty of times, and he said those words. And then here he is being front and center in media. So it'll be interesting. Certainly has his connection.
I remember when Sterling Sharp didn't say a word to the media for 10 years and then got a microphone. I mean, A-Rod is actually really good at this, right?
He's great.
Like who?
He could easily be one of the best at when it comes to baseball. I mean, it's just brilliant. Yeah.
Crazy, man. We'll be watching, though, and certainly staying in touch with you. And obviously, the Brigade experience will be on that as well as some Raven stuff. And I know you're out there getting some opportunities. My best to your bride, and we'll take care and send everybody out to Brent Harris TV to check in with you. Hang in there, my man. We're all doing well. It's springtime.
Thank you, Nestor. Always good to catch up, bud.
You got it. Brent Harris TV, the way to find him out on Twitter. You can find me out in the Bayou Toyota Audio Vault 24 hours a day from anywhere in the world. On your mobile device by downloading the TuneIn Radio app. We do come in crystal clear. Morning newspaper ships to your email inbox at 7 a.m. It's all brought to you by our friends at Planet Fitness at planetfitness.com. Don't forget, head coach Barry Trotz of the Washington Capitals joining us for a swabbing for the Bone Marrow Registry. And for There Goes My Hair. I'm rocking my red right here on our YouTube and WNST TV channel. And on Monday night, we'll be rocking it with head coach Barry Trotz at Greenmount Station in Hampstead. Come on out, say hello to the coach. We'll talk some Caps. Hopefully they win some more games this week after that tough trip out to California last week. And he's usually very, very candid with us after 3 decades of relationship. It'll be great to catch up with Coach Trotz. The London trip is on sale at WNST.net under the Road Trips tab. We got over 100 people signed up already. Taking more. We have some more space, some new information. Go check it out if you haven't been up there lately. There are some updates. Nasty at WNST.net reaches me if you have questions about that. And, of course, Twitter, Facebook, LinkedIn, Snapchat, Instagram, and streaming live on Facebook Live, as well as our YouTube WNSTV channel. We are WNST.net, AM 1570 and WNST Towson, Baltimore, and we never stop talking Baltimore sports.